Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really massive proactive initiative from the Philippine Department of Education, or DepEd. We're looking closely at exactly how they are tackling youth drug vulnerability through their Preventive Drug Education Program, which you'll usually hear called the PDEP. Now, this isn't just your old school Just Say No campaign. It's actually a comprehensive, heavily structured policy designed to literally turn classrooms into protective environments. It's a super fascinating look at where public policy meets human psychology. So let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. Today we'll be covering the vulnerable teenage years, DepEd's preventive policy response, the 4 core anti-drug pillars, the K-12 curriculum model, building essential life skills, and finally, empowering healthy learners. Section 1. The vulnerable teenage years. Understanding the critical window of risk. Because, before we can really grasp the policy itself, we need to understand the human element it's designed to protect. Just look at the sheer scale of the vulnerability here. According to data from the Dangerous Drugs Board, 1 in 2 drug users in the Philippines begin experimenting with illegal drugs when they are between the ages of 15 and 19. Let that sink in for a second. Half of all cases start right in the middle of a student's high school years. So this data tells us loud and clear. If you want to actually prevent substance abuse, the absolute main battleground is the secondary school years.
So you might be wondering why that specific age range. Well, the source material points directly to developmental psychology, specifically Erik Erikson's psychosocial stage known as identity versus role confusion. Basically, during this massive transition from childhood to adulthood, teenagers are just desperately trying to figure out who they are. They're testing their boundaries, demanding independence, and dealing with a really intense need to just belong somewhere. Teenagers often turn to substances out of pure curiosity, maybe just to relieve boredom, or very often simply to fit into a peer group. They honestly perceive very little risk in these behaviors, which makes them incredibly vulnerable to exploitation.
Moving to Section 2, DepEd's Preventive Policy Response, specifically DepEd Order No. 30, Series of 2018. Recognizing this critical vulnerability we just talked about, they knew a systemic shield was absolutely necessary. Back in 2018, DepEd issued Order No. 30. Think of this as the overarching master plan. It officially mandates that drug abuse prevention must be integrated across elementary, secondary, and tertiary curriculums in all public and private schools. DepEd fully recognizes that the drug problem isn't just something for law enforcement to handle, it's absolutely a shared responsibility. Schools have to act as a safe haven, a protective environment to safeguard the personal safety, security, and the overall well-being of their learners.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the policy doesn't just stop at prevention. It also lays out highly structured, compassionate protocols for when a student does unfortunately fall at risk. Based on DepEd Order 37 from 2017, they actually categorize and treat active cases systematically. If a learner is identified as an experimenter, the intervention is an outpatient setup with guidance and counseling for 6 months. If they are an occasional user, that steps up to counseling plus monthly drug testing. And for a chronic or dependent user, the mandate requires continuous rehab in an accredited center for a minimum of 6 months. It's a clear, tiered approach that prioritizes real rehabilitation over just punishing or dismissing a student.
Section 3. The 4 core anti-drug pillars. This is the overarching framework for creating a drug-free school. Let's zoom out a bit to see the big picture.
DepEd's strategy is built on these 4 pillars to create a really holistic safety net. First up is curriculum and instruction. That's your daily classroom-based learning. Second is co-curricular initiatives, which covers specific trainings, symposiums, and wider advocacy campaigns. Third is preventative education and testing, ensuring a drug-free workplace for staff and maintaining safe schools overall. And fourth, which is huge, is parent and community involvement. While all 4 are totally vital, for the rest of this explainer, we're really going to hone in on that first pillar, curriculum and instruction. Section 4, the K-12 curriculum model, guided by DepEd Memorandum No. 025, Series of 2021. So, how do you actually teach drug prevention to a kindergartner versus a high school senior? Through Memorandum 025, the department provided a super flexible framework to answer that exact question. The real genius of this model is that prevention is not treated as some boring, isolated assembly once a year. It is seamlessly baked right into their daily learning. Teachers are given specific competencies to weave into everyday subjects. Think health, science, values education, and even subjects like English and math. The whole curriculum is designed to be highly value-laden, skills-based, and most importantly, developmentally appropriate.
Let's move to and see how this builds progressively as the student grows up. In kindergarten through grade 3, you're obviously not talking about complex illicit drugs. You're talking about healthy habits, basic hygiene, and knowing the difference between medicine and poison. By grades 4 to 6, they start learning about gateway substances and practice basic refusal skills. Then, hitting junior high, grades 7 to 10, they get into the hard facts, drug control laws, the severe impacts of things like e-cigarettes and alcohol, and advanced refusal tactics. Finally, in senior high, the focus flips to empowering them as transformational leaders who actually advocate for a drug-free lifestyle in their community.
Section 5. Building Essential Life Skills. This is all about arming students for the real world. Because behind all of the curriculums and lesson plans, the true engine making this work is the life skills they take home. The source material uses this absolutely incredible metaphor that I want to highlight. It frames education as protective armor. By teaching abilities like critical thinking and decision-making, we are literally handing learners the weapons they need in the battlefield of life. It gives them the actual tools to cope with intense peer pressure and the daily demands of growing up. You can really see this evolution clearly when we put the skills side by side. The foundational skills in the early years are super focused on the self. Basic hygiene, clear communication, assertively refusing danger, and the critical thinking to spot unsafe items. But as they graduate into the advanced skills of high school, the scope totally widens, from just protecting themselves to protecting their community. They learn empathy, how to analyze the complex social factors behind substance use, and ultimately, transformational leadership. It's a brilliant shift from basic boundary setting for kids to complex social accountability for young adults.
Section 6. Empowering Healthy Learners. This is the ultimate goal of the entire PDEP program, and it brings us to the resolution of our explainer.
What is the end game of this massive effort? Well, it's beautifully stated in the source presentation. The goal is not merely just avoiding drugs. It's about fostering lifelong wellness within a healthy learning institution. It's about molding holistic, responsible, and truly empowered learners. This entire policy framework isn't just a shield to hide behind, it's a solid foundation for a thriving, successful life.
But here's the crucial takeaway for all of us. DepEd cannot do this alone. They repeatedly emphasize the need for strong partnerships. Protecting our youth is a shared responsibility that goes way beyond the four walls of a classroom. So, I want to leave you with this thought to chew on. How can you help foster a supportive, drug-free learning environment in your own home and in your community? Thank you so much for exploring this vital policy framework with me today, and keep learning.